Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, a show that harmonizes the rhythm of hip hop with the magic of movies. Today we're discussing Fear of a Black Hat, a 90s mockumentary which spoofs several hip hop acts and the ideology of the era. We're three old heads who put their old heads together to vibe on these films for you. I'm Dino Wright, podcaster, filmmaker, longtime hip hop fan, and if I had to pick, Fear of a Black Planet is my go-to Public Enemy album.
I'm JB, 80s and 90s nostalgia junkie, longtime hip-hop fan, and I'm the pinnacle. That means I reign supreme. I'm notorious. I'll crush you like a jelly bean.
Boogie, a DJ, longtime hip-hop fan, and I finally, after all these years, get to see Rakim and KRS-One in concert Friday night.
Awesome.
Yes. In this episode, we'll answer the question, is Fear of a Black Hat worth watching? And we'll give you 5 key takeaways to make you a smarter hip-hop movie fan.
Fear of a Black Hat is a 1993 film satirizing some of the biggest hip-hop acts of that era. It is replete with parody songs and wild shenanigans. Here are 5 things you need to know about Fear of a Black Hat. 1. The movie spoofs several of the big-name hip-hop acts from the late 80s and early 90s. 2. The movie is in a mockumentary format and draws some comparisons to This Is Spinal Tap. 3. The parody songs were pretty well constructed and quite catchy. 4. There are a few side-splittingly funny moments. And 5. It's debatable whether the movie holds up. Alright, fellas. Let us get into this silly, silly movie called Fear of a Black Hat. Well, you want to kick us off in terms of some of the folks that this movie spoofs upon that were big names in that era of hip-hop?
I'll give a few of them right off the bat that I noticed right away. So I'll say Public Enemy was one of the first ones that stood out to me. I mean, you had the group dynamics. You had one character who's, like a Chuck D-ish type character, another guy who's kind of giving his ad-libs and bouncing around, kind of like Flavor Flav. The name itself, NWH, is an easy callback to NWA, and also Eazy-E. You see a spoof of PM Dawn, LL Cool J, and Ice-T, and there's some others. I'll let you guys chime in on some of that.
Yeah. You done it right. You want to add it to a few of those?
One of them was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, I think was the other one. That was a big one. I thought I saw some elements of Digital Underground, but I wasn't quite sure if I really saw it or not. But Boogie covered most of them. The ones I noticed.
I'll add a few as well. I mean, there was a cat called MC Slammer.
Yeah, right.
Which is obviously Hammer. And then there's, he dropped the MC just like Hammer did. Vanilla Sherbet instead of Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Sherbet.
So these were the silly things that got me laughing a little bit. And then they spoofed Salt and Pepper, where they had the 4 girls, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Yes.
Hey, and guess what? Foreshadowing, right? They were saying, "Oh, we're more spices," and then little did they know there would be an act called the Spice Girls several years down the road, right? There were 3. There was another thing where they did all the guys with the name Ice just as a joke. It was like Ice Tray, Ice Coffee, and a few others. And they even spoofed the big name directors that we spoke about on our podcast, Spike Lee and John Singleton, with a guy named Jake Spingleton.
Yes.
And New Mac Village, which was a spoof of New Jack City. They showed a clip from that.
Right,
so they didn't hold back, and they covered a lot of the big acts from that time. So you're right, Boogie. It was like they did play off of Public Enemy, but then also a lot of it was NWA and Larry B. Scott's character, which I think he pulled it off pretty well. Like, you would never realize he was the same flamboyant guy, Lamar, from Revenge of the Nerds. He spoofed both. Lamar, exactly, with the javelin. I always think about that scene with the javelin. Oh man, Tasty Taste was his name here. So he played a pretty convincing, gangster, thug, Eazy-E style.
Yeah, he was like an Eazy-E meets Flavor Flav kind of.
Yeah, what was interesting. Yep. So those were some of the key ones. We'll get into the parodies in a little bit, but the songs. The movie itself is done in a mockumentary format, or it's a fake documentary, with woman named Nina Blackburn in the film, following the crew around, and it drew some comparisons to This Is Spinal Tap. So, Dynamite, I think you had some notes about Spinal Tap. Like, what do you think for This Is Spinal Tap? What are the basic comparisons that you saw? Because I know you were familiar with that one.
So the basic one is there wasn't really much of a plot in this movie, and then you just sort of follow the band as they go and their rise and fall. They hit a lot of familiar things for music acts, like performing and inter-band dynamics and politics. And so they have a Tasty Taste girlfriend does this kind of like Yoko Ono-ish kind of thing where she tries to split the band up, and we can get into that later. But the other like obvious one is that they go through a lot of managers. Like Spinal Tap went through a lot of drummers.
That's right.
And that was actually one of the funnier things, is that they weren't there when the managers died or got killed, so they weren't in town.
Right.
It's kind of a funny takeoff on that.
Yeah, Boogie, you want to talk a little bit more about the mockumentary format and kind of how it was done?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of CB4 too, with its over the top parody of gangster rap, and also the way it was formatted, how it followed the band around and kind of saw where their beginnings were and how they rose up. But yeah, it was like when I first saw it, I was like, it's like a mockumentary of a mockumentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, different layers.
Yeah.
I did think that the bit about all the managers getting shot and killed, there was at least 5 or more, and they were all white, and they were making some comments about, we got to protect the brothers. And
yeah, the first couple were black, and then they couldn't have that anymore, so they started having white managers as like cannon fodder.
And then they ended up beating up the one record company guy, John Liggett, I think was his name.
Yeah.
It was just chaotic. They had a beef with a rival crew called the Jam Boys. And in the midst of that scene, their manager, Freisch, got killed with like a ricochet gunshot, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was silly. They did a spoof also on the whole racial profiling aspect, which is done in a lot of these movies. Which they made a joke out of it where it's guys like, take your right hand, put it over your left hand, but then twist at this angle and turn. And it was kind of ridiculous. That was in there. And that led into one of the parody songs, which was F the security guards, which was a spoof on like F the police, which I thought was kind of funny. And also, speaking of mockumentary, and like the guy that used to deliver the MTV News, Kurt Loder was in this quite a bit too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, a couple of bits.
Yeah, he did a good job. I just looked him up. Kurt Loder is still around. I think he's like in his late 70s.
Yeah,
late 70s.
Mm-hmm. And he has ties to New Jersey. I never really looked up his history. He did a lot of work. He grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey, in that area.
Oh.
Yeah, he went to high school there, and he used to write for like local publications there, and he got to the Rolling Stone, and then it was kind of happenstance that he became a super well-known music journalist. But, yeah, so Kurt Loder was pretty funny in that, the way when he was interviewing these guys in his like straight-laced voice.
Yeah, one of the few things I liked about the movie.
yeah, Kurt Loder. Exactly. So I guess that's a good lead into then the parody song, because I mentioned the one about the security guards, which was making fun of security guards wanting to be real cops, and I was like, F those guys too. But there were a handful of these parodies, and I thought that the parody songs actually were pretty well constructed, and they were catchy. Like, I think they did their homework and they mimicked some of the beats from some of the originals.
They took them directly, I think, some of them.
Yeah. Some of them they took directly. I don't know if they had the authority to do that, but they did.
Yeah, they definitely did their homework when they put these songs together.
Yeah. Boogie, you want to talk a little bit about some of the parody songs, kind of what they were mocking and about?
Yeah, so so they had there was a song called "Grab Your Stuff," which Well, they had to have a, since they comparing themselves somewhat to NWA. The Grab Your Stuff song was the controversial song that was, I guess, in line with the F the Police that NWA put out, where they were threatened that they could not perform the song, but then they went out on stage and proceeded to perform it anyway and was arrested. There's a Gorillas in the Mist. The video shoot for that song had me cracking up, though. It was parody of them trying to get the choreographer to get them to do some dance steps, and it kind of reminded me of "If It Isn't Love" by New Edition. And the choreographer was walking around with a jockstrap codpiece similar to Larry Blackman from Cameo. So that had me cracking up a little bit too. But yeah, so then they had the F the Security Guards, which we mentioned. A Gangsta's Life Ain't Fun. Come pet the P word. I'm just a human being, which is like the PM Dawn parody, which I'll let you guys kind of talk about a little bit too. And Granny said, "Kick Your Ass," which is kind of like an LL Cool J parody.
Yeah. And there was one more, Booty Juice, which was like
Booty Juice. I forgot about that.
Spoof on the booty rap, and they hooked up a tap to the booties, and I thought that was over the top and ridiculous. But yeah, they didn't leave any stone unturned, I guess, with like who they were parodying. The Girls in the Mist song was a little bit catchy. Some of the songs had catchy. The Come Pet the P sound, like you said, sounded just like CNC Music Factory, like Gonna Make You Sweat. It was like pretty much the same. The one that had me rolling on the floor laughing a little bit was the PM Dawn parody, because the big guy, Tone Deaf, he went from like thug and then he became almost reborn and very like zen-like.
He was definitely Prince B Nocturnal in this.
He was
spoofing him directly.
Exactly. Human Formantics was the group, right? And then I was watching it with the subtitles on because I never want to miss a lyric or anything like that, and it was cracking me up because it was talking about I'm just a human being, really, in this mellow voice, and it had the same beat to Set Adrift on Memory Bliss, and it was talking about we all pee standing or sitting, and if you eat too many beans, you might get diarrhea, but it's okay. I'm like, what is this song? But it had me cracking up. I had to like go back and look it up on YouTube and just like chuckle a little bit more. So that one, I wasn't expecting that one. So it kind of hit a nerve, a funny bone with me.
Yeah.
Donna, you have any more takes on the parodies songs?
Yeah, they were okay. In general, I didn't really enjoy this movie that much. It on paper it was funny, like jokes were seemed like they would have been funny, but then there's something about the execution of it that it's like, yeah. But the songs were pretty good. I mean, they did do a good job of parodying the songs. I think there was something about the song, even those, like they sort of like did what you might expect in parodying these songs, even though they sort of went over the top too. So they were a means to the end for me. It's like, oh, good. Like we're not watching the rest of this mockumentary. We're just watching a music video. The film itself was like constructed in these pieces, and it was just another way to get further along in the runtime. Okay, we're gonna do this thing, and they're gonna spoof something, which on the surface sounds like a good idea, but I don't know. I thought I'd laugh more, and it didn't. So here we are.
Yeah, literally, the PM Dawn one was the only one I really laughed at. Some of them were overdone. The LL Cool J parody was interesting because it was like they had a beef now. It was like Tasty Taste had a beef with Ice Cold, and like he's literally like chiseling a big block of ice. And it's in black and white, just like the Mama Said Knock You Out video. So I was like, okay, I get it. It's kind of funny.
It's like it was on the nose a lot, and I thought, something like this, it didn't have to go so obvious, even though sometimes it went over the top. So yeah, I think that was one of my gripes.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Booty Juice video was like a parody of MC Hammer's Pumps in a Bump video.
As if it needed more parodying.
Yeah, you're right. I remember Hammer getting parodied on like In Living Color, and and Vanilla Ice getting parodied there, and they did some good parodies on that show back in the day.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what like having seen CB4 and having seen Don't Drink Your Juice in the Hood. Like this was like the third place one, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen this kind of idea already, even though this came out I think before those other two, right?
Yeah,
this was 92 or 3.
This is 93.
So like, well, I've seen this idea already, and I didn't need to see it in this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that this one doesn't have that cachet as those other ones.
Mm-hmm. Some people loved it. I mean, maybe I might have loved this if I had seen this first and like when it came out. I probably would have liked it more as a younger man. But
agree.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. So I was like, had I seen this when it first came out, I'd have probably been falling off the chair.
Mm-hmm.
I see exactly what they were referring to.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
It's hard to compete with Chris Rock in CB4 and the Wayans brothers in Don't Drink Your Juice in the Hood. That's tough competition. I mean, Rusty Cundiff's done a lot of good stuff after this. So it's not like he's not funny, but I don't know. It didn't land with me.
Yeah, I agree. Good point. So that being said, like, there were a few side-splittingly funny moments. The 1 p.m. Dawn, I won't rehash that again, but that one really got me laughing. The other one that I thought was funny is the book, the FYM book, like F y'all mofos, and he's like, it was funny. It was a funny concept. I think I've seen other books out there along those same lines that people have produced. You walk through Barnes and Noble or something, or you see these books and it's a similar theme, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, I might buy the book. You have a bad day, and it's like, F y'all mofos. The other thing is like the DJ scratching. They went over the top, and he was scratching with his butt, with his foot, other body parts, and then the kids watching the Jam Boys and NWH beef in the school, and I did find that amusing. Yeah.
I think that was a good idea that landed with me.
Yeah, and then the baby had a beeper on his little hat.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny at one point.
And that part was, I think that was pretty inspired. I didn't laugh like that much, but I laughed. Yeah. I laughed some.
Yeah. Any other moments hit either of you guys like strike you as funny?
Well, you mentioned it, that DJ demo scene had me. I mean, as a DJ, that had me. I was dying. That part had me laughing.
Yeah.
I was there like, okay. He's going, oh, okay.
He's scratching it with what?
Yeah, that part had me laughing. And there was another part. I forget, when the cops were driving and the cops pulled them over, and then one guy, the cop says, I got a lot of coffee and donuts in me, so don't push me. I was like, what? I don't know why. There was just something about that line that had me cracking up. Like, I laughed for about 5 minutes. I'm like, why am I laughing so hard? But and then that Jam Boys and NWH beef with the kids around, that was funny. How everybody just started running out of the room.
Yeah.
What? Oh man.
Yeah, like that escalated pretty quickly in front of the kids. Yeah. All in all, the last takeaway is it's debatable whether the movie holds up. So, Donna, right, you already mentioned that this wasn't your favorite, and you gave a couple reasons. We've seen other parodies that have done a much better job, but any other points to that effect?
Yeah, there's sort of the standard, like, okay, this movie's from a certain time period, and in that time period, there was racism and homophobia and misogyny. But that was almost like beside the point. Like that was like part of the deal, like spoofing gangster rap. Then that was a lot of the themes that were in it. And so whether this makes this movie still good many years later, 30 years later, I'm not sure. I really wasn't sure what the point of the movie was, even though you go through this story arc of such as it is, like they they come up, they have a lot of success, and they come down. I don't know. Does money change everything? Is that was that the point? I think I go back to my original point where CB4 and Don't Drink Your Juice in the Hood were a little better executed and probably more worth your time than going back to this one. But not to say that Rusty Cundiff isn't worth seeing. Like, he went on to do Chappelle's Show, like a lot of episodes of Chappelle's Show, and those are some of the most brilliant comedy that there is.
Valid points. Boogie, how about for you about this movie holding up? Any words?
Yeah, I mean, I remember like when we decided to watch this movie. In the back of my head, I'm saying, like, I remember when the movie came out, and I'm like, why didn't I watch it when it came out? I don't know. I think it was something about it looked a little too silly for me at the time, and which is really weird because I really enjoy comedies. I do think that had I watched it back then, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more than watching it as as I approach 50, watching it. And I was like, okay, it's yeah, it's not like Dana Rice said, the execution compared to like CB4 and Don't Drink Your Juice and and other parodies that have been done since then. I don't think it necessarily holds up as well. But like I was trying to see if maybe it was just me. So I went and I was looking up other people's reviews of it, and like I said, there's people out here that actually absolutely love it. They think it's the funniest movie ever made. I'm like, wow, okay, all right. So I mean, in some people's minds, I guess it does hold up. Will I watch it again? I probably will watch it again because I really want to see if I missed these other points and other perspectives. Like we were talking with with Chuck D said, if you want to be an expert, you got to see all of the perspectives. You're not just something that you enjoy. You got to try to dip in and see other people's views and see what's out there. So with that in mind, I'll watch it again, just to make sure that what I'm feeling at the moment is not incorrect, or if I'm just going to be like, all right, you know what? Yeah, I was right. I probably shouldn't have watched it again.
There were a couple things I liked, and they were more like the subtle jokes that you just they're sort of right there, but they don't make a big deal out of them. And I actually thought they were more clever. The one was during the climactic handoff scene at the end, when Ice Cold pulls his gun out, there's a condom on it. I was like, that was good. And then when they're in the record store and they talk about whether you get your own divider, and so this is so anachronistic.
Yeah.
But when you get your own divider, that means you made it. And you're not in the generic like end section in the back where the records or the CDs are. I thought, that rings true. And I think a lot of things, like even though they were like exaggerated parodies, like it didn't really ring true. And I think in CB4 and Don't Drink Your Juice in the Hood, they did ring true. And I think that's why they worked better than this. And so, yeah, I feel like that's why it didn't work for me, and maybe why it may not hold up now if someone hasn't seen it already and already locked in on this. So
yeah, I could see this film having sort of a cult following, and I think to your point earlier, Donna, right, it's like if you had seen it at the time and you're like, this is my movie, like this made me laugh right there in the moment, then I could see it. It actually had a decent Rotten Tomatoes audience score, and even Roger Ebert, when he had reviewed it, gave it
3 stars.
3 stars, yeah, I thought so. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was impressed that it was Rusty Cundiff, who didn't have a big resume back then, put it all together. It did have that ridiculous, it had a funny disclaimer in the beginning which kind of set the tone. It's like, we're going to use words like booty hoe and this and that, and they repeated it a few times. And yeah, I mean, that was it. It was like they're not trying to accomplish much other than have a good time and kind of poke fun at the hip-hop genre and culture at the time. I guess they didn't try to do too much, and I don't think they did accomplish all that much. Yeah, it's something to look at. I remember in passing one of our events that we went to, Cap C mentioned, our friend Cap C, the other DJ that we know, had said, "Oh, your favorite Black Hat? That is a hip hop movie, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's definitely a hip hop movie." And I think he laughed. He thought that was funny. So yeah, I mean, nah, didn't win awards. Not going to ever win awards, but yeah, I got a chuckle out of some of the songs and a couple of scenes. One of the other funny things that was that I picked up on was when they were talking about riots, and they're like, "Oh, well, you guys think that we're lazy if we go riot and we take furniture and stuff, but hey, moving that end table or that couch and finding the matching thing and going back and forth, that's a lot of work," or something like that.
There were some good parts.
That was kind of funny. Yeah.
The three complexion thing that they did with Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley and Malcolm X, like,
oh yeah,
it did make me laugh. That was like, I felt that was pretty inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely had its moments.
It had its moments.
But the way it made me feel at the end, like, because my son was on the couch while I was finishing it up, and he was like, "Oh, was this good?" And it's one of those things. It's like, would you recommend it to someone of like the younger generation? I was like, "Yeah, it was." As they say, mid, these guys, as the young crowd says, it's mid.
Yeah. I would direct them to Other Work by Rusty Cundiff.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we're going to have a tough decision here with our rating here that we typically do. So if you guys, hopefully you guys have given it a little bit of thought. On the fence, from what I hear, in our commentary, but let's go around and do our ratings. So, Boogie, for Fear of a Black Hat, will you bring that funky flick back?
Bring that funky flick back?
Or leave it in the vault?
So I was thinking about the words that I use, and I think that I am going to watch it one more time and then put it in the vault.
You're always bending the rules and living on the edge there. All right. Dino, right? How about you? Bring that funky flick back or leave it in the vault?
I'm going to leave it in the vault.
Okay. And for myself, I will also leave it in the vault. Despite, some of those things making me laugh, but there's a lot more comedy out there that I'd rather continue to see. So, yeah, got to draw a line somewhere. Too much content out there. Too much content, you got to draw a line.
It's going to end up in the vault. I'm
vault.
definitely going to leave it there when I start watching one more time.
Yeah.
Boogie got the door open a little bit. Then he's going to close it.
So it's in the vault. So what does that mean? I mean, there's a clamoring for it at some point. Maybe it comes out of the vault, but put aside.
Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, Boogie, and Dino Wright. Theme music by Boogie. Whether you're listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube, please give us a follow. It's a real power-up for us. Thanks for tuning in.
And remember, don't hate, consolidate. Consolidate your activities, organize, consolidate your debt, consolidate whatever.
Consolidate your debt.
That's what we're going to do with this. We're going to take the good movies and keep them out and put this one in the vault.
That's right. That's right. Focus. That's right.
Consolidate your collection.
Yeah.
I sound like Phil Rizzuto promoting a reverse mortgage or something.
The money store?
The money store.
Oh, man. I had to say, I only learned of Phil Rizzuto from the money store. I didn't realize he was a ball player until
later. It wasn't until years later that I realized he was on the Meatloaf Paradise on a Dashboard Light. That was him doing the broadcasting. You know that? That was Phil Rizzuto.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Rounding third, he's going for home. Gonna go all the way tonight. That is Phil Rizzuto.
Oh,
so I know the Yankees fans know that.
Sense now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
But that bonus knowledge for the people.
That's a much younger Phil Rizzuto. Like, I'm used to listening to him when he was in his later stages of broadcasting, calling people huckleberries and stuff. Holy cow! But the younger voice was that song was in the, I want to say, late 70s, probably mid to late 70s.
Right.
But it is his voice. There's not too many baseball announcers on hit tracks, so
that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Play ball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.